Impact!
Left target. All right, guys, we're a little over a mile. Set up these two IDPA targets because I don't have like a 3-foot or 6-foot target wide, and we have 18 to 22 mile an hour winds. It was actually gusts were a little bit higher than that at one point, and so we knew this was what we're going to fight. The vertical was incredibly consistent. For about 6 rounds, I was about neck height with my impacts, and using these target light hit indicators from Caldwell. The first impact that I had was right here on the neck on this thin steel from shootsteel.com. And then the second impact, which was like 8 rounds later, was over here on this side. The first impact on this one knocked this target light indicator off completely, but I was able to recover the bullet from the second one, mostly disintegrated. Looks like it came in at a pretty steep angle. My data for that was about 19.5 mils, which is really not that much. I was very impressed with the 300 PRC consistency in fighting the wind, which was consistently at least 18 miles per hour wind, full value, and I think I was holding about 5.5 to 6 mils for wind pretty consistently. All right, spotters, are we looking safe? Do you see anything out there? No cows?
You're looking good.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Well, you stop looking at me. I mean, look down there, buddy.
Yeah, the mirage is pretty bad.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, I can read it coming off that hilltop out there.
Oh yeah.
All right, I think I'm ready, Andrew.
All right, spotters up.
Yep.
Yep.
Up 18.5. I'm holding 4 for wind.
I gotcha. You are
2/10 right.
You're like 2/10 to the right side of that right target.
Yep. All right, holding. I'm gonna go 3.5 for wind.
Impact.
Impact.
Impact. I just saw the green.
Levi just saw the green from here with his bare eyes.
Awesome.
Nah,
He's like, impact.
All right, holding 3.5 again for windage.
binoculars.
Yeah.
Get out. Back to back. Oh my gosh.
Save those. And it fell.
That's 3 in a row.
It fell.
That's 3 in a row. All right, I got one more left here. Let's see if we can go 4 for 4.
Yep.
You're clear.
ooh.
Miss.
I saw dirt.
It looked like it was right behind it. Like it weaseled in between.
Go in between?
Something.
Oh, holy crap, that's
Look at
amazing.
this way right through.
Well, that was quite the experience. I have never dealt with conditions as rough as what we did for those 2.5 days, basically. I'm really glad that we had an Airbnb that had lots of stuff to do to go play around at, because we burned up 2 full days with just between travel and really bad, unusable weather. Thankfully, and I'm so thankful, thank you God, that I could get out the first day with my friends, and I had a good spotter team. I want to say thank you to my spotter team who helped me out. They sacrificed a lot of their time so I could get out and do this, which was just, it's awesome to have friends like that. And I am indebted to them forever. So the rifle did well. As you could see, we did manage to get impacts even in, I would say, really, really bad wind. I know that 20 to 30 mile an hour winds, if they're consistent, is doable. But when it's gusty and it's changing directions and your wind flag is suddenly going to the north or to the west, and it's just flipping back and forth, and it's hard winds. I mean, the kind of winds that just blow everything over. If you could see in the footage, I was hiding behind a van, a side-by-side, which we had cornered out a little bit. I had my spotter, at least one of them, in the van. I had another spotter to the side of the van and another spotter crouching down behind the van. The wind, I mean, even 30 miles an hour is a lot of wind, but the gusts, which were reaching at times up very, very high, yeah, it's just difficult. So I'm hiding behind a tote when we're filming. I'm shooting from the prone. I'm just barely eking them out over the grass tops, trying to get as low as I can to deal with the weather conditions. And mirage at certain points, if you saw that last clip, the mirage was pretty intense. There were times where I did have to back off magnification a little bit, but I actually was really, really surprised that I was able to shoot most of the time. I'm gonna move it back over. Most of the time I was able to shoot at 16 to 20 power really reliably. And this isn't gonna be a scope review at all, but this is the Zeiss 4 to 25 S3 LRP. I've usually had this on 22 or maybe my 308, and I like the scope. It's not my favorite scope of all the scopes that I have. It's got about 44 mils of usable internal range before you start clipping the image a little bit, and the tube can't compensate. It's not big enough. Just the specs are as such that you're running the max extreme. So about the first mil and the very last mil of your extreme range of travel, I wouldn't say that those are perfectly usable. You do get some image clipping. And I put up with that for a while, but then I reduced rails so that I wasn't running it all the way to like 45.5 mils. So instead, I have it on a 40 MOA base from Anarchy Outdoors. This is where I want to actually have the conversation. This allowed me, if the weather had been more conducive, this would allowed me for my 2-mile shot today, or the other day. This would allowed for the 2-mile shot, and I'm very confident that I would have been able to see those impacts and misses in the same medium that I was shooting into that day. The dust was just enough that we could pick up what was going on, and I think at 2 miles, when we were testing images out on our spotters and scopes, I think we could have done it. But yeah, just with the wind, it was a little bit extreme, and my number one priority is being safe, and we didn't feel that we could safely accomplish that particular day. The rail allowed me, though, to optimize my image. So where I'm zeroed at right now, I still have, with a 40 MOA base, I still have a lot of internal travel available. There's 10, there's 20, and there's 30. I'd call it 36.4. 36.4 mils. And of course the reticle will get me the 2 miles sufficiently with this caliber if I use them both. And I'm excited to try that out in the future if I do end up going with this scope combination with the rifle and the same bullet. We'll see. That bullet performed really well. 225 grain Hornady ELDs, not even a hand load, not even using 230 AMAXs, and I felt really consistent even in the wind. So I'm sure the other bullets are superior and you're gonna get better performance, but my combination worked well here. So with this rail, I feel like it just maximized everything that I'm gonna put on top. It maximized the utility of the rifle. So I can shoot, if I wanna shoot at 300 yards, I don't shoot rifles like this at 300 yards, but if I wanted to just shoot at 300 yards, I could be content doing that. My glass would still look really good. I'd be near enough to center of the glass. I wouldn't be at an extreme with the cant or tilt. And so I think it's a pretty good practical range for a heavy Magnum precision rifle like this. 50 MOA, 60 MOA, I mean, they have a 60 MOA option. I could have gone for the 60. I probably still would have had a really good experience. But because I do reviews fairly often, it's nice for me to have a 40 MOA base. And if you're looking for something that gets you out further, but it's not 60 MOA, it's not towards the extreme, and you're gonna be just shooting maybe like I did, just out to a mile or so and in, then I think the 40 MOA base is gonna do everything you need, even on those other centerfire like 308 or 6.5 type RPRs. One thing that was incredibly useful was, again, I put high rings on here, and I was able to see my bubble level in the rear with every shot. Every shot, I could get that perfectly level. I felt like it read really good. It was consistent. It's about the right size for what I wanted to do with it. Some guys would really still want to have a secondary up here. I just didn't feel I needed it. And obviously from those impacts, when you're getting back-to-back impacts, as long as you're consistent with this bubble level back here on the base, on the scope mounting base here to the rear of the Picatinny, if you're consistent with the placement of that, you shouldn't have too much deviation there. But you have to be good with the details. You have to be really particular to get that to line up exactly where it should every time. Pull the trigger, same wind, same velocities, all those things that you already know about. I like the rail a lot. One of my favorite parts of the additions to this rifle that I've made. Moving on, the magazine assist release here, the extended release, never came off. I was actually really surprised because my rifles got handled kind of rough. My buddies who are watching this, it's not their fault, but we just had a lot of gear. We were throwing in a lot of gear. I didn't have as protective of a case as I need. I probably need a more protective case for my gear at this point because my bags are literally getting worn out and ripping bags and tearing stuff. And I just don't want to wreck things in general. You got knobs hanging off like this. They are hanging out and stuff gets kind of bent on, and I'm surprised more stuff didn't break. Only a couple things broke on this trip. And so I probably need a better case. But anyways, this didn't come off at all the entire time. It stayed on there. Things were being used kind of rough and aggressive, and it just doesn't come off. I'm kind of surprised that it doesn't. I thought initially, like, will that stay on there? It just doesn't come off. Even when I put on a lot of force, I thought somehow it would, slip off, but it doesn't. It's got enough tension on that clasp with the little indentation on the inlet, so that's awesome. And it does just make it way more natural for releasing the magazine when you're sitting in the prone. Instead of trying to find the tab and get your finger just right and all that, you could just get really comfortable layout. You don't have to worry about repositioning and then changing your bag. And just when you're trying to get as steady and consistent as possible, it's obnoxious to have to change your position constantly. And I didn't feel like I had to do that very much with this setup. The other ones I did, but not so much with this one. So that was a win. That's an affordable piece. Absolutely throw it in with your kit. Anything else you buy, this is so affordable. There's not really a reason not to improve your rifle with that. Highly recommended. Moving on. So another thing I've talked about in a previous video, if you didn't watch that with my 5 upgrades for Ruger Precision Rifle, this combo right here, 3-piece combo, you have your bolt shroud. I might as well just go ahead and take it out here. Okay, so I have my shroud, the improved shroud from Anarchy Outdoors, held up perfectly. The end cap stayed tight, had no issues with that at all, threading out or loosening up. The arm here, or the bolt handle, this handle was an excellent reduction in angle, very smooth. The weight along with that reduction in angle just made it feel really smooth, running them back and forth. That in combination with this being an inline system, it's just a really smooth process to run the bolt and get back on, and I don't feel like I'm fighting bolt lift, first of all, which is great. I don't feel like extraction or chambering another round is rough. It's just all a really smooth process, which is what you want in something like this. That, and then of course the bolt knob itself, having the scallop in the middle, the texture on both the ridges, putting all these pieces together just made a really smooth firing experience. And anytime I give this to anybody else and let them get behind it and try it and run it, they're like, that's what a precision rifle should feel like. And so I'm impressed because this isn't a custom, obviously. This isn't something hand fitted, but these parts made it feel so much smoother and operate, truly like actually operate smoother in my opinion. I think the firing experience was more enjoyable, pleasurable. It just feels the way that it should feel in my opinion, other than the trigger. I think RPRs need better triggers, but it seems like I have a hard time getting people to agree with me on that one, unless they actually shoot long range or ELR, then they're usually real quick to agree. The other thing that I had out there with me was a CZ457 with a new aftermarket barrel, and it's got a bunch of stuff I'm reviewing on there. It's got another Zeiss 6-36, the S3. So I've got other things on that rifle that I needed to film out there, and the 22, the Rimfire basically came with to fill time while we were waiting for barrels to cool down, but then it ended up being horrible conditions, so we just tried at 160 yards to be making hits, and the day that we were shooting the Rimfire was in 50, 55 mile an hour winds with the consistent value being around 50, and then the gusts going up to 73 miles an hour. It felt like we were in a tornado. So that's just too wild. And at 160 yards, we were holding 8, 9. I held 10 mils at one point to get close at even closer distances. It was insane, but I got a really, really good time with the pistol grip, and I have another video I'm going to release that pistol grip footage on. I'm going to let my friend, who is like his first time really trying a vertical grip out before, doesn't have a lot of experience with that. I'm going to let him talk about it and do that review. But don't forget that Anarchy Outdoors makes pistol grips. They're really good. I'm thinking about switching this one actually. This isn't bad. I like it, but I'm thinking about switching this to the Alpha grip because I'm just really comfortable behind the Alpha grip. And one thing that I like way more on a rifle like this with the Alpha grip has a better thumb rest. It's more consistent for placement. And with the RPR, it's not bad. I typically put it on the safety, but there's just more of a consistent ledge on the Alpha grip. So don't miss that video. I already have one video out about it, but I'll have another one out with a newbie and a friend talking about his experience and why he liked it himself. A couple other things. I should probably just go through what I have on this rifle very briefly because I do get a lot of questions. I have the original muzzle brake. The only thing that I've changed is I took one Allen out of the top. It's the third one, 1, 2, 3, which is located in the second chamber. So I took that one out, just a minor reduction in hop, but it's enough. This thing shoots so soft. One of the reasons it shoots soft is because I actually shoot this with a Super Cal. A lot of times if I'm in a field or a grassy environment or in the desert or something like that, this is the bipod that I would go with. If I'm off of a bench, I can shoot a regular Atlas and it's fine. But this one's just a little taller, and it helps, as you can see right here, with this bag that I have. I use a Weebad Mini Fortune Cookie for a rear bag most of the time, and in competition I almost only use one bag. With this bag right here, it flows really nicely, stays level, and if I need to notch up just a little bit to get over grass, I still have a really wide stance. It's heavy in the fore end, and then I have an adapter on here that's Picatinny as well as Arca. Because Arca has the chance of moving around unless you use an Arca plate with teeth, this one doesn't have enough teeth. I choose to go with Picatinny, so I actually have a Picatinny rail up here in the Arca, and I'm not using this for PRS. I don't need to move my bipod back and forth much. So this Picatinny piece that the RPR Magnum came with is sufficient. I almost went with the UTG overbore for this trip. I'm glad that I didn't, only because this was fully sufficient and a little more natural to work with, but the UTG overbore can be good, and I've had some good results with it. Has some advantages, such as natural leveling, which if you're on uneven surfaces, it can have an advantage, definitely. It's also heavy, which is nice. This is the DST Precision. It's called Duh Shaft, and there's a 3-pound, which would stop right about here. There's a 4-pound and then a 5-pound. If you combine them all together, I use the 5-pound, and this thing moves around on rifles, especially this one, that recoil, if it's just the Arca. Unfortunately, I've had just too much shift in point of impacts, and I've noticed that it loosened up on the arm here. So what I did is I moved it all the way up, because it shifts forward. I moved it all the way up to the Picatinny and crammed it against there, tightened it down really hard, used a little bit of a tool to tighten it down, and it didn't move the whole time I was shooting. When it doesn't vibrate and doesn't move, it gives me incredible consistency, and now the rifle weighs, I don't know, 25, I should go weigh it again, 25, 26 pounds. It's really heavy. It's probably 24. Yeah, I think it's actually 24 pounds. But 24 pounds is really great with this larger size rail that the RPR Magnums come with, 26-inch barrel, the larger bipod that I went with. This is just heavy and it's good. My optic isn't as heavy as I would like it to be. Actually, I want a heavier optic on here, but the Zeiss 4-25, awesome. Center dot was great for what I needed to do. Clarity was really good. So again, this isn't an optic review, but I will say that I was really happy with the performance. Tracking was true. When I dialed, went back to 0, dialed again, I was at 18.5 mils, which is less than I thought I would need at 1783. So a little past a mile. I thought I was going to need 19. So I was a little confused why my data didn't line up exactly. That's okay, because at the end of the day, I was making repeat hits, but there was a minor correction there. It's not much at all, just a minor correction. My algorithm and my app, although I tried to true all my data as closely as I could and make those corrections, it just seemed like the algorithm fell apart a little bit somewhere along the way. So there's some input error possibly, which is the most likely thing, or I was just having a combination of differences. You know, recoil is definitely possible. If you don't handle recoil the same way every time, your data could be slightly different at those distances. It's just all a possibility. So anyways, I used the, let's see, who makes these? Is it UTG? Some QD rings, because my original intention was to record with a scope cam through here. Could not do that with way too many variables going on, so I skipped that. The rings did fine. They didn't shift, they didn't move, they didn't get banged around, kept to 0. And like I said, Hornady 225 grain ELDs, had an MDT grip on here. I have the factory stock. Here's one thing I wish I would have changed. I wish I would have updated this bag rider earlier. I've seen on Anarchy Outdoors some awesome bag riders, and I think I need to look over there for a better bag rider, because this one is a 3D printed one from eBay. It was probably $7 or $8, and it's just not appropriate to put on a rifle of this caliber and the way that this thing can perform. This thing's kind of chintzy and just not as good as the other ones out there. More adjustability would be favorable. And with the butt stock, I didn't have too many issues. I wish I could lift it up about maybe a ½ inch, quarter inch at the most. When I'm shooting in prone in certain positions, it seems more natural to have a little lift here. The stock it comes with doesn't work that way, but there are adapters that you can put in. I just need enough of a rubber butt on there to stay comfortable for long shooting sessions. Again, I apologize, I had to film this indoors. The lighting outside would be great if it wasn't so miserable with weather. It's still really bad out there. I just wanted you guys to see a little bit of the setup that I had. I am not a professional shooter. I really enjoy long range. I think I'm more level with a lot of the people who watch my channel, and I want to show you guys that it's totally possible. If you're willing to be safe and do a lot of the homework ahead of the time, I've got probably months of work to come in and be able to almost cold bore some shots at a mile in really wicked wind. That was doing a lot of work. It's not just a calculator, it's not just a ballistic app, it's knowing the systems I'm working with. There are improvements here that made things smoother, and if I wanted to go further in better conditions in the future, I feel really confident now. So I want to recommend, check out Anarchy Outdoors. Thank you to Anarchy for helping me improve my rifle and get me out to a mile, essentially a little beyond a mile. And I think we're going to do 2 miles and not too far away. So stay tuned to the channel for that. Check out my links down below.